PR isn't something that people always think about. And if they do think about it, they're not really sure how to incorporate it into their business. I think sometimes people think there's like this big, giant, scary monster. So I just really want to help to educate people on it and let them know that there are things that you can do to make it easier.
Welcome to the Process to Profit podcast, where we find out about the key processes and productivity techniques that drive successful service-based businesses. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, join us as we uncover practical strategies to streamline your operations and help you make more money by boosting your profitability. Let's get started. My guest today is Angel Wilborn. Angel is a public relations navigator. She has a Master of Arts in Public Relations and a certificate in event planning. She is a behind-the-scenes kind of girl, which is why PR is perfect for her. She does a little happy dance when a plan comes together or a crisis is averted. She believes in honesty, kindness, and organization, and that is how she runs her business. In addition to being a fabulous PR navigator, she is also a wife and a mom. There is usually a caffeinated beverage, a notebook, and a pen close to her. In her spare time, she enjoys organizing, no, seriously, having game nights with her family, trying new restaurants, and most importantly, napping. The important things in life, yes. Well, Angel, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm glad that you're prepared with your caffeinated beverage. Why don't
Yes.
you tell us a little bit more about who you are, who you help, all of those good things?
Oh, awesome. Well, Lauren, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me here. I am super excited to be here. And yes, I have my caffeinated beverage in my this is my so I love collecting coffee mugs. This one is my emotional support coffee mug. So I was lucky to get it because every time I get a new coffee mug, my son tries to take it. He's like, I don't want to use it. I'm like, it's mine, buddy. But so yes, caffeine definitely important. But again, I'm just happy to be here. As you said in the bio, I love public relations. I love organizing. I have raged organized a couple of times this summer. Like how they say some people rage clean. I rage organize. I'll see something. I'm like, ooh, I don't think that belongs there. And then next thing you know, I reorganize the pantry or the bathroom or something like that. You
Just snowballs. I
yeah, it just
understand.
kinda yeah, it just kinda snowballs. You never quite know what's gonna happen or what's going to be moved around in my house. So, yeah, and I definitely, as being an introvert, I like to be more behind the scenes, like, I don't need to be in the forefront, and so public relations is just perfect for that because you kinda get to hide out and be like, "Here, this is what you do, this is what you say," and I don't have to be seen, but being a solopreneur, it's, a little bit different that because if you're by yourself, you kinda have to be seen, and so that's something that I really wanna, like, kinda focus on is helping introverts be comfortable with doing different public relations things that they may need to do as a solopreneur in their business.
Yeah, and it's funny, I never really figured out that I was kind of an introvert until I started a business and then had to do all the things, and I was like, "I don't wanna this is hard, this is scary, I don't wanna, like, message people randomly or, like, go out and do presenta," like, you don't kinda realize what makes you nervous until suddenly you have to do it, so I'm
Yes.
glad that there are people like you out there helping us figure that out.
Well, thank you. I try, yeah, it can be really hard, but once you kinda start to get comfortable with it, it's okay, and then you just have to know, like, your own boundaries and know what's enough for you, and then also know that what works for someone else may not work for you. That's not how you operate, and that's not how things flow, and that's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just means that you need to retweak what you're doing.
Yeah. That's great advice because I've been working with a business coach and I really love her. She's been giving me some great advice. But some of the things that she wanted me to do, I've been trying because I want to get out of my comfort zone and I want my business to succeed.
Right.
But like it just wasn't really jibing with me. It wasn't
Mhm,
really how I work. It wasn't really how I think.
mhm.
And, she was really adaptable and working with me and she's been wonderful. But yeah, totally agree. Like sometimes things just don't click with your personality and your preferences, and that's okay. So,
Right, that's okay, and I wish that people like your business coach is amazing for realizing that and then working with you to kinda tweak that for what makes you feel comfortable because I've talked with people before and they're like, "Oh, well, you should try this." Like, someone told me that I should just try cold pitching to people on, like, social media sites, and I was like, "That's not me. I'm not just going to hop into someone's DMs that I've never had any type of connection with before and be like, 'Hey, this is what I do. Here's how I can help you.'" And I was like, "Yeah, it can be a little scary, but that's really how people are getting clients these days." And I was just like, okay, but it's not for me. And they kept like trying to pressure me into it. And I was like, I cannot, one, I don't like that. So I'm definitely not going to do something to someone that I myself do not like. So that's the first thing right there. And then two, I don't feel comfortable with that. Like, that's not how I
Yeah.
operate. I want to build relationships and I want to talk to people and get to know people. I just don't want to be like, hey, Lauren, we've never met before, but here's my product. You should definitely check me out. Let's schedule a consultation because I ignore stuff like that when I get it. And so it's just like, no, that's not my thing. And they just kept trying to like force it on me. But if it's not how you operate, it's not how you operate. And trying to force it and make yourself do it is only going to make things worse, and I feel like slow your progress.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there's a balancing act between trying new things and then also realizing like, okay, I've tried it and I don't like it and I want to move on.
Exactly.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes of our conversation today. You
Alright.
are a PR expert, and I know very little about PR. I might even say nothing about
Okay.
PR. So why don't you start by telling us what is public relations and why do people like coaches, consultants, things like that actually need it in their business?
Okay. So public relations, and the easiest way to put it, it's how people see you. It's your brand's image. It's your brand's reputation. It's what you do when a crisis happens. It's how you portray, it's kind of how you spin the narrative and how you portray your business. So what people don't realize a lot is that you're already doing PR. Like, for anybody that's ever worked in corporate America or anything like that, for instance, I'll say my husband, he works at a bank. And so they have to wear uniforms that has the bank's name on it. And so they'll tell you, hey, if you're going out after work to go meet some friends or anything like that, or even if you're just going to like your kid's softball game or baseball game, whatever, take your shirt off, change your shirt. So he always keeps like an extra shirt in his car, or I'll make sure to bring a shirt with him because if he goes out and, he does something crazy, not that he's going to, but if he goes out and he does something crazy,
Like
they're not
punches
looking
somebody at the baseball game or
right,
something.
exactly, or like starts yelling and screaming at a ref. Nobody's looking at him. They don't know him as an individual. But what they do recognize is they recognize that branding on that shirt. They recognize the color of the shirt. So now it's not his problem. It's the place that he works at. It's their problem. And so that's what PR is. So you'll hear a lot of times like corporate America people be like, don't go out in your work shirt. Don't do that in your work shirt. Even with like high school people or like athletes and stuff, they're like, don't do that because you're well known. And so people as solopreneurs, you don't realize you're already doing public relations. Like if you have a business, you're now Lauren, the business owner. You're now Angel, the host of the Modco podcast or the owner of the Modest company. And that's what they're associating with. They're not associating it with the individual. So it's all about brand reputation, brand management, and how the public sees you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That was a great explanation.
Thank you.
So so it's almost like you do this for a living. So now that we understand kind of more of what public relations actually
Is
is okay,
yeah, is
singular.
okay. Yeah.
How can small businesses use it for themselves? What does that actually benefit for someone like me who's a consultant? How does public relations actually benefit me?
Okay. So again, as a small business owner, one, I always like to say small business owners don't get as much grace as the big corporations and the big name brands do. So again, we've all seen where like a big name brand will put out a shirt or a slogan or something like that. And people are like, oh my gosh, what did their marketing team do? And then the PR team has to come in and clean it up. And people are like, oh, okay, I'm still going to go and I'm still going to shop there. I'm still going to go give them all of my money. Versus whereas a small business owner or how they say, you can go to a fast food restaurant, they can mess your order up 100 times, but you go to a small business and they do one thing wrong and that's it, you're done with it. And so
Yeah.
we don't get grace as small business owners. Literally most times one thing can make or break you. And 9 times out of 10, that thing probably isn't even your fault. But that's where public relations comes in because you always want to make sure that your brand and your business is being shown in a positive light. And that if something does come up, like let's say, for instance, using your example, so you're a consultant, right? So, what are you going to do if you have one client who you've done everything for, but they're not following your contract protocols? They're not following what you've outlined in it. And so they're going out and giving you a bad review, or they're bad mouthing you. It's like, okay, that would be considered a crisis management aspect. Do you have a plan in place to be like, how am I going to maintain my reputation? How am I going to let people know, not in an argumentative way or not in a way that's being rude, but let people know this is in fact false information. This is not what happened. This is how it actually happened. And so that's why it's important. Or if you're a restaurant and someone happens to get sick from your restaurant, like the person may have came in there and they may have already been sick before they came there, but then they come to your restaurant and now they're trying to blame it on your restaurant, you know? What are you going to do? So it's little things like that that you don't necessarily think about as a small business, but you do need that crisis management aspect in your business so that you can be prepared for things, because they're gonna happen as a small business owner.
Yeah.
Someone's not gonna be happy with your services because they didn't follow the guidelines of what it was that you were supposed to do, or what it was that they were supposed to do, or they weren't satisfied with the outcome or something like that. So you need that. And then also, as a small business owner, you want to get yourself out there in the community. You want to get people to know you. So that's also where PR comes in, is to allow people to be able to get to know you and to know your brand.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's funny you were talking about crisis management and if someone was going to start bad mouthing you, and it's like very anxiety inducing as a business because, like you said, we don't get the grace. If somebody is out there telling people that you're terrible at your job and your business is terrible, and you're a solopreneur and you don't have that PR plan, you don't have that PR resource, like,
Mhm.
do you ignore it? Do you go after them? And how do you not let your own emotions take over when you're trying to deal with it, where you're just escalating it and making it worse as opposed to actually addressing it professionally and fixing the problem. So, ooh, stressful just to think about.
Right. Yeah, it can be, but it's just important things that you have to think about. Like big name brands, they have these in place. They have their crisis communications plan in place. So if something happens, they're not trying to go around and be like, okay, what am I supposed to do? What do I have to do? They already have their plan. They already know who they need to call and who they need to contact to handle the situation and get it taken care of, so that it becomes a thing of the past and that it doesn't hurt them in the long run.
Yeah. It's funny, as we're recording this is just after the whole CrowdStrike debacle where, all those computers went down because of the release that they pushed out,
Oh, yeah.
and the release, basically bricked a bunch of computers, and so they're
Mhm.
manually fixing them, and I'm just thinking, like, their PR team must be scrambling right now, but people are still gonna do business with them, just to your
Right.
point, like, they're not gonna get rid of CrowdStrike, they're not gonna get rid of Microsoft, they're gonna continue to do business with them, so they don't have as much pressure to sort of deal with it and fix it. And, yeah, the optics of just giving a $10 Uber Eats gift card is probably not great, but it's not probably not going to kill their whole business. Whereas if it was a small business and we didn't have a PR person, we didn't have a plan, we didn't have, you know, the resources to be able to deal with it, it might
Right.
actually really take your business down. So
Right. And then, to piggyback off of that as well, okay, they offered a $10, Uber Eats card. Now, if that was a small business owner and they offered a $10 Uber Eats card, that's all that they can offer me. Like, they caused this major inconvenience in my life. That's it. This is the best they can do. I'm not dealing. I'm not dealing with anyone.
yeah.
Not realizing that as a small business owner, that more than likely probably had to come out of their pocket. So now there's something that
Hmm.
they cannot do in their business or, with their family, because they were trying to do that to make things right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, what are some misconceptions that entrepreneur or small business owners have about PR? Because we've, explained a little bit about what it is, but what are some things that people think are PR and aren't, or things that they misunderstand about it?
So one thing that I would think that people misunderstand about it is that, again, they think it's only for big brand names, and that's definitely not true. They think that if they're an online business owner, that that they don't need it. They think that if they're a solopreneur, they don't need a crisis management plan. Um, People often get public relations and marketing mixed up.
Mhm.
They're two different things. And I also think that people think that public relations is just something that happens in a crisis, but it's not necessarily just a crisis. It's just a good tool to have in your everyday life. And there's so much more to it than just crisis management. Like public relations also has to do with media, like pitching yourself, getting on other people's platforms, getting on podcasts. Um, Public relations specialists can help you book things like that, like getting on people's podcast, or if you're an author, like helping you with your book tour, different things like that. So it's not just all avoiding a crisis or fixing a crisis outside of it. It has its positive aspects of it as well.
Okay, yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about that. How can implementing a PR strategy sort of ahead of time and not just in crisis mode help, coaches and consultants sort of create those processes within their business to help their business grow? How can PR impact those businesses positively as opposed to just crisis management?
Yeah. So I love a good plan. I think that you should have a plan for for just about everything that you possibly can, because when you have a plan for something, so when you're in the heat of the moment of something, whether it's something good, whether it's something bad, most of the time, all common sense, all logical thinking, it goes out of the window because you're either super excited about what's going on or you're super anxious or nervous about how this is going to affect something. So, either way, emotions are running high and you may look over the simplest things. But if you already have a plan in place, if you already have a checklist in place, yes, you have that excitement and that's great, but you can go and you can look at your checklist and be like, "Okay, I'm excited, but these are the steps that I need to hit right now in order for this to keep going in the positive direction that it's going in. Or these are the steps that I need to hit in order for this crisis to be averted." So, if you need to know that, like, for instance, let's say that one of the positive things you're doing is that you're pitching yourself to be on, a podcast or something like that. Well, if you're excited, if this is your first time pitching and you're excited, you may skip over some steps. You may not send your one sheet over, or you may not include like the proper language or something in the email. But if you have your checklist, you can be excited, but you can also be looking at your checklist and saying, "Okay, I did this part. I did this part. Let me check this off. Let me check this off." And so having a plan is important because it gives you, it's like your favorite blanket when you're a child. It gives you that security that you need to say, "I've got this." Like, I'm excited or I'm anxious, I'm nervous, whatever it is, but at the same time, I still have this and I can follow this plan.
Okay, yeah, and I love a plan,
Yes.
So as a as a productivity and a process person, I love a plan, so I'm right there with you. So, what are some ways or some other ways that solopreneurs, coaches, consultants can sort of incorporate PR into their regular processes? So, we've talked about how PR isn't marketing.
Mhm.
So, what does that look like, in the day-to-day or the weekly processes of a solopreneur for actually incorporating PR, either with support from someone like you or on their own?
Okay. So some ways that you could incorporate PR, definitely have your PR goal set. And one thing that is really good for solopreneurs, consultants is earned media. And so what earned media is media from a third party and unbiased party. So think about reviews, testimonies, people referring other people to you and saying, "Hey, you should go check out Lauren. She's a consultant. She can help you do this. She's a productivity consultant. She can help you with your productivity." That's earned media. People trust earned media more than they trust any other type of media, especially owned media. And owned media is anything that you own. So your websites, if you have a podcast, anything like that. But people are going to trust that earned media because people either write reviews when they're really upset about something, which is usually, that's mostly when people write reviews, is when they're really upset about something, or when they had really, really excellent service and they had a really great experience. Those are the two main times that people will write reviews. And so that's why people trust them more because they know that it's coming from this third party. And you do have to be careful. I will say with reviews, you have to be careful when you're reading them because, of course, we have spam and bots and all that stuff. But you can usually tell when it's like a spam or a bot that the review is coming from. And I will also, as a little side note, I will say, because I do know that a lot of business owners use like Yelp and Google reviews and different things like that. Y'all, please stop arguing with people on these Yelp reviews and these Google reviews when you comment back on them. So, me personally, as a consumer, I check a lot of reviews. I'm very big on earned media. I'm always checking reviews before I go to a new restaurant, a new place, anything
Same.
like that.
Yep.
Yes, you
Mhm.
want to check it. And so, I like to take the good with the bad because one, I don't trust a place that just all of their reviews are good. Like now, okay, if it's a podcast, I'll usually trust that, but if it's like a restaurant or a hotel or something, I'm just like, "You have 8,000 reviews and all of them are 5-star." That's it's a little strange to me.
A little suspicious.
Right, anything with that many reviews and all of them are positive, it's like, that's a little suspicious." But then also on the other hand, it's like you have 8,000 reviews and all of them are one-star reviews, little suspicious. So, I like a healthy balance between the 2 of them. But what I don't like to see and what will definitely turn me off is if I see a negative review and then I see the owner going like back and forth arguing with the person in the comments. There's nothing wrong with, again, you know, stating your case, like writing back and saying, because that's a part of PR, writing back and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry that you had this bad experience. I'm sorry that it didn't meet your standards or what you were hoping to expect." If they don't already have it in the comment, what could we do to earn your business back again? Or what could we have
Mhm.
done differently to make your experience better? Or something like, is it okay if we reach out to you personally to talk about this and see if there's a way that we can reconcile this and possibly earn your business back? What I don't like is when I see, well, the time that you're talking about, this was happening and I had this going on and I had that going on. No, because now you look just as crazy as them for responding back to it, and now you're making your business look bad because now I'm thinking that you're just this combative type of person and that, it's not professional. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not professional. And so to me, I don't want to do business with you because I'm no longer thinking of you being a professional. Now you're just somebody that's arguing with someone else on the internet. So there are professional ways to handle that, but stop arguing with people on the
Yeah.
internet. So,
Yes.
it's
I
just
mean, in
just
general, I feel like that's a good life advice to just stop arguing with people on the internet.
yes, I definitely agree with that. Like, just stop. But so back to earned media. Sorry, that was my tangent. That just really that really just gets to me. But so ways that you can get earned media is if you have loyal customers, ask your loyal customers, "Hey, when you get a moment, will you leave me a review on, whatever platform it is that you have reviews on?" Or even when you finish, like with you being a consultant, okay, once you finish the project or finish working with whoever it is that you're working with, and like your final wrap up email, ask them, "Hey, I would really appreciate if you could leave me a review or a testimony and let them know this may be used on my website or in other promotions or anything like that." Like you can ask that. A lot of times people will just leave reviews. I know me a lot of times if I go someplace and I have really good service, I'm right there on Yelp still while I'm sitting there, whatever it is, and I'm sitting there and I'm writing that review and I'm telling everyone about it. So that's good. You'll hear a lot of times business owners will say the best thing that anyone can do is to refer me to a friend. Like someone referring you to a friend or a coworker or a family member, that's speaking very highly because that means that you had excellent service because most people don't want their name to get a bad reputation. Because again, if I refer someone to Lauren and then Lauren turns out to be crappy or she's rude to them or anything like that, it's, well, Angel referred me to her. So now I can't trust Angel anymore. So now that's my reputation. Like it's not, at this point, nobody really cares about Lauren. They might say, "Oh," if somebody else mentions them, I'd be like, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that." But for the most part, they're gonna be like, "Angel told me that." So now I can't trust anything that Angel says anymore.
Yeah.
So that's a very high form of PR is earned media. So you definitely want to be trying to get that earned media. And then networking. Like networking is a very good tool that you can use for PR because networking connects you with people that you may not have otherwise connected with. Like with me and Lauren, I think we originally found each other in maybe a Facebook group or something like
I
that.
think it was. It was
Yeah.
like a podcasting Facebook group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it was a podcasting Facebooking group and I put out a call for guests. And so she came on my podcast. And then when she started her podcast, she sent me an email and she's like, "Hey, would you like to be a guest on my podcast?" That comes from networking, which is something that wouldn't have happened if we had never done that. And so networking is still a really great tool. But I also want to say with networking, don't go into it thinking, what can I get out of this? Like, don't go into
Yes.
networking
Yes.
thinking that, excuse me, that everyone that you connect with is going to lead to a referral or lead to a client or lead to you getting on their podcast or them referring you to someone else's podcast. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons to network with people. There's a whole bunch of reasons to make connections with people. And you making a connection with someone, that connection may not even be for you. That connection may be for someone else who down the road who may need something. There's been plenty of times that I've connected with someone and I'm like, "Oh, I don't need their service." But then I'm like, "Oh, light bulb. I know somebody that does. Let me put you in contact with them." So go into it with an open mind and just realize that it may not be you who needs the service. It may be someone else. So definitely earn media and networking. Those are like my two big things that you can do to get yourself out there and to tell people more about your brand and get people to know more about your brand. And and also I'll say tell your story. Like just tell your story and talk about yourself. I know a lot of times we as female business owners, we shy away from talking about ourselves and from telling our story. And so when people ask you, even if you're still working a 9 to 5, but your goal is to do your business full time, when you go out somewhere and someone says, "Hey, what is that you do?" Now's not the time to talk about your 9 to 5. We don't care about that at the moment. Now is the time to talk about your business and what it is that you do and who it is that you serve. Because again, they may not need your services, but someone else that they know may need those services.
Yeah, all great advice. You were talking about earned media and asking for testimonials, and I have actually implemented a process in my business where so I work with clients for 6 months, usually 4 to 6 months, depending on where they're at in their business. And I've implemented a process to send myself a reminder automatically at the halfway mark to say, check in with this client, see how things are going. And
Mhm.
obviously, I'm meeting with them regularly anyway. But sometimes there's not space for feedback, and I love getting feedback
Right.
as a coach. It's been something that I really focus on. And so I have a midway through our work together request for feedback. And then at the bottom it says, this may be used in public as, a testimonial and things like
Right.
that. Because it's twofold. It's helping me get feedback for how things are going so that I can pivot if we're not if I'm not doing something that they want or we're missing something or something's not working, then I can fix it because we're only halfway. And if they praise the work that we're doing together or they really talk about, what they've enjoyed and what they've gotten out of it, then I can also use that as a testimonial. So it's a great sort of twofold process for keeping on track with my clients and then also getting those testimonials. So the important thing that I have found though, and you can speak to this or correct me, but is you have to ask very specific questions. And I don't mean leading questions, but I
Mhm.
mean, don't say like, how are things going? Say,
Right.
what could I be doing differently? Or what do you wish that we were working on that we haven't worked on? Or, make the questions actually things that people can answer as opposed to like, how are things going? Because people are
Right.
going to be like, fine.
Right.
And that's not helpful. So
No,
you
not at
want to make
all.
sure that they're really clear, answerable questions.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. That's a very good point, Lauren, because I've received a lot of surveys where it's just like, "Well, how are things going?" They're going great. Or either you just don't answer them at all, it's just like, "Well, how likely are you to refer someone to me?" Okay, a 10, like the service was fine, but if you kind of dig deeper and just reword your questions a little bit differently, like how you just said, you're more likely to get an answer out of people, and then that can help you revamp things if you need to, make sure that you're staying along with keep doing the same things that you've been doing if you need to. It really helps when you ask those specific questions and like you said, really kind of get in there and not just broad questions.
Yeah. And, it makes for better
Mm.
testimonials if
Yes.
they give you more specific answers of this is
Yes.
what Lauren has helped me with or this is what you've helped me with and I really enjoy it and this is the outcome of it
Right.
as opposed to Lauren's great.
Right.
I
It's
mean,
like,
I am great,
you
but
are great. Give me a little bit more detail, please. How am I great? Tell me how I'm
yes.
great. Yeah.
I'm gonna need a little more, thank you.
Yes, thank you, please.
And then you talked a lot about networking, and that has been something that we talked about, being an introvert at the beginning of this. And that's something that I have really had to step out of my comfort zone and work on because, you know, reaching out to people and asking like, "Hey, let's meet, let's talk, let's see how we can collaborate." That was not something that was super comfortable for me. It was not something that felt really natural. It felt like I was pushing myself on people where I may not have been wanted. I thought people might think I was being salesy. So it really took a lot for me to figure out how to incorporate that felt comfortable for me.
Mm,
And it's exactly what you said. It's coming in with the mindset of how can I help this person as opposed to how can they help me or how can I get something out of it or how am I going to sell to this person? Because I never now go into my networking calls with how am I going to sell to this person?
mhm.
And usually they're not people that I want to sell to. They're not really my ideal customer, but there are people who probably work with my ideal customer so that we can collaborate on something and then we both benefit because we have similar audiences, as opposed to going to them and saying, "Well, I work on systems and what kind of systems do you need and how can I help you?" Like
Mm.
that's not what anyone wants out of these calls, really. And if it works out, then it works out. Like I actually networked with an HR person who then ended up after a couple of calls becoming my client.
Okay.
But it was never our intention at the beginning, and it happened organically because we found we
Yes.
really meshed together. She really needed the services I was offering, and it worked out that way, but that was never the intention that we started with. So,
Mhm.
yes, networking gets easier as you do it, I want to say.
It does. It definitely does get easier because I had like a really big issue with like networking and stuff and just talking to people. I remember when I first started out when I was doing my other business, I went to a networking event and I happened to meet this lady while I was going there because we were both lost trying to figure out exactly where we were supposed to be going. So we ended up sitting beside each other. But then after they had the speaker and they did the presentation, it's like, okay, now get up and talk to people. And I was like, oh, I was like, "I guess I am at a networking event. I do
I
have
got
to be."
this lady, I could talk to her.
Right, I was like, I can talk to her, like, do I have to talk to other people, you know? But as an introvert, some things that I have kind of found that make it, I guess, a little bit easier for me to with the networking is one, like, having the podcast definitely helped me a lot because I was looking for guests or talking to people as guests, so that helped me. And, but posting on social media, like, I'm not big on social media. I have a very love-hate relationship with social media, but it has helped me step out of my shell a little bit more because most of the time I forget what I even posted on social media. A lot of my posts are scheduled, but every now and then I'll, like, post on a whim. Think a couple of days ago, I posted on Threads because 'cause I've really been into Threads lately, love it.
Me too.
Yes,
Yep, yep.
it's so much fun. I posted on Threads and I was like, I'm looking to collaborate with other women podcasters to do like podcast promo swaps. And so I just put it out there and then I just kind of forgot about it. And I got way more comments and responses and feedback than I thought that I would. And I was like, okay, this is great. And then also on Threads, I can comment on someone's post. I feel like it's a lot easier on Threads than any of the other social media. I can comment on someone's post. Like I've networked with people just by commenting on their post or I post something and they comment on it. So I feel like it takes a little bit of the overwhelmingness of it off because one, you're not face to face, you're doing it on your phone. And so, if you tend to be an overthinker or something like that, you can kind of think about it before you
Yep.
respond back to what it is. Or if you want to take a few minutes before you respond back to it, you don't have to immediately respond back to it versus if you're in person and someone asks you a question, you got to respond back to them right then. And as introverts, we like to be able to prepare for stuff. And so having to be able to respond right then is not always the best thing for us. So I think social media, if you're scared of networking or if it makes you a little bit nervous, I would say start off in networking groups on social media and just slowly like dip your toe in, hang out in the group for a little bit, get a feel for the group. And then when you get comfortable, then post and introduce yourself. I've seen many groups that I'm in, people be like, "Hey, I've been in this group for over a year, but I just now got comfortable posting. I want to
Yep.
introduce myself." So you can always do something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice. And threads, it's funny you mentioned threads. Threads feels more raw to me, like, it
Mhm.
feels more real, and
Mhm.
so I have been really enjoying Threads, but also struggling with it because like you said, you should be really telling your story, And that's just not something that, is comfortable for me. It's not something that, it's not that it makes me uncomfortable, it's just that it's hard for me to put it into words, like, "Here's what I've done, and here's how I help people," and, like, that's just not something that comes really natural to me, and so but I find with Threads that that's the content that really resonates with people. People
Right.
wanna hear about you, they wanna hear your story, they wanna hear, how you've done the thing, and for me, it's just so hard to be that authentic, I guess? I don't know.
Mm.
Not hard to be authentic, but it's hard to be that vulnerable and that raw, and so Threads has been really challenging for me in a good way by teaching me storytelling and teaching me how to think on the fly about what I wanna say and how I wanna say it, and, so it's been a really uh, interesting experiment for me, but I found a lot of podcast guests
Mhm.
through Threads just by posting on it and saying, "Here's my podcast, here's what I'm looking for," and I had a ton of people interested in it, so it's a really great, I think, opportunity for people to start getting back to that more natural feeling, less, um, you know, projected feeling of,
Right.
this is what I have to be perfect, and I have to have all the things, and I have to have the aesthetic timeline and all of those things. Like, Threads is much more real and natural, which also makes it more vulnerable, so
Yes, I
just
agree.
an observation.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. And then something that you just said too, like telling your brand story. Cause I've had a lot of people, I talked to a lot of people who are just like, I'm just not comfortable telling my story, or I don't know, like how to tell my story or what I should say. And so a couple of pieces of advice for that is one, most of our ideal clients, our target audience is people who are going through something that we've already gone through. Like that's why we started our business because we had a problem, we solved it, and now we want to help other people solve their problem. So, excuse me, I say tell your story and talk to them in a way that you wanted someone to talk to you when you were going through that. Think about what you needed someone to say or what you needed to hear during that time to help you with that problem, to help you solve that problem, or to help you take the steps to start solving that problem. And that's how you tell your story. You tell it from that point of view of where you were at when you were going through this. And then also because some people they have a lot of stories, that led them to that point. So I also say write down your stories, like write it out. I'm a person that likes to write stuff out. Like I need to see stuff and then I kind of take it from there. So take the time to write out your stories, all of them, like not just one. Take time to write out all of them. And then look and see which story is best for which platform. So because all social media sites are different in the aspect of what it is that people are looking for on the sites or what it is that people want. And then also when you go on like a podcast or when you're talking to someone in person, that's different than being in on social media. So write those stories down and then decide which one is your best story first and then take that and decide how you wanna break it down so that if you're posting it on Instagram, that it fits the process and the way that people like to see things on Instagram. If you're doing it on Threads, it fits how people like to see things on Threads. If you're on a podcast, that it fits into that. And then once you get comfortable telling that one story and breaking it down into the different, platforms it's using, then you can incorporate other stories or other parts of other stories.
Yeah, that's great advice because I never thought to write it down, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's great advice, and just like you said, there are so many different aspects of your story, of my story. Like, I moved to Italy and I had brain surgery and I got a divorce, and it's like, which one of these really would resonate with people to help them kind of see
Right.
themselves in me? So
Right.
I think I totally agree. Writing it down, I think, would be a great first step. Well,
Yeah.
Angel, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed talking to you. I want to talk a little bit more about how you specifically help people like me, coaches, consultants, solopreneurs with their PR. What are some of the things that you can do for businesses like mine?
Oh, so, well, thank you for having me here. I've definitely enjoyed this conversation. So, right now, what I am doing is I am focusing more on pitching. So I'm pitching and having a PR toolkit because as I said, that goes back into what we talked about earlier about planning things out. And so there are various types of PR toolkits, but the ones that I'm focusing on more is like having your one sheet in place, having your media kit in place, your brand board, like templates for press releases. So that again, for people who are introverts or people who are like, ooh, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say. If you're a consultant and you're talking to someone about your services, you can have a one sheet that says, okay, here's what I offer. Here are my services. Here's the pricing for it. Here are some client testimonials or reviews on them. Or even if you're just in like a networking group, like we talked about, you can say, here's my one sheet. And that way you don't have to think about what it is that you want to say or think about what it is that you want to talk about, or even be like, okay, well, what did I say in the other post that I put in? Like, is this different? Am I telling them I could do something different now than I did before? Or am I putting something on there that I'm not comfortable with? If you already have that one sheet, it's just like, okay, here it is. I slide it out to them. That's it. Or I can go on there and I can pull pieces of information off of it. It also helps with your bio, because most places they want a bio or some type of information. Bio and headshots are the 2 main things that people always want, and I know at first I was always like, "Okay, where's my bio? Where's my headshot?" I was searching around for it, but you have it on that one sheet, so now I'll just go on my one sheet and pull off my bio. If they don't need the whole sheet, I'll just go on there and I'll pull it off of my bio. So a one sheet is great for consultants, it's great for solopreneurs, it's great for coaches because it's great for speakers, authors. It gives a list of, here's what I do. Here are the topics that I speak on. Here are the books that I've written. I've seen people put on their one sheet a list of questions that they like to answer, that they feel comfortable with, because that's them kind of controlling the narrative. Like, yes, I do want to be on your platform and I want to get out there and speak to other people, or, I want your business, but here's what I'm comfortable with, so that people aren't coming out of left field and asking a question that they may be like, okay, I wasn't prepared for this. And so having a one sheet is a really great. Media kits as well, if you're looking to do partnerships with other people, or if you're looking to do collaborations with other people. Here are all my statistics right here in place, so that you're not going out and fumbling around trying to figure out what it is that, what your statistics are. Of course, you want to make sure that you keep these things updated regularly, but having an arsenal of those tools at your disposal comes into that planning, so that you're not having to go out and search for it when you actually need it. And then I also have a crisis management workbook as well. So for the toolkit, I have a DIY toolkit that you can do yourself, or you can work with me and we can work on it together. And then I also have a crisis management workbook that just gets you to sit down and think about those things. And I can also work with you on that and help you with that. But just to think about, okay, like we were talking about earlier before we got on here, that we're currently, we got Tropical Storm Debbie going on here. So a lot of stuff in my area got closed down at the last minute. So if you're a solopreneur or you're a small business owner, what are you going to do if a natural disaster comes through and, that's going to stop your business for a while? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do when you get that bad review from a customer, or, your product happens to be defected or something like that? So things like that is what I help people with, just to kind of to plan out, because like I said, PR isn't something that people always think about, and if they do think about it, they're not really sure how to incorporate it into their business. I think sometimes people think there's like this big, giant, scary monster, so I just really want to help to educate people on it and let them know that it's not this big, giant, scary monster. There are things that you can do to make it easier and to prepare yourself and to plan for it.
Yeah, so it's funny you were talking about the speaker sheet, and I'm thinking I have all of that in my notes app, which is probably not the most professional way. I probably shouldn't be spending my sending my notes app to people, so
Right.
might be something I need to look at
Yeah.
organizing a little better. So
Yes, it is. I mean, it's just so easy. And like I said, and the thing that I like too about like the one sheet is that you can do it one of two ways when you send it to people. You can send it to people either as a PDF, or I create mine in Canva. So you can either send it to people, you can download it and send it as a PDF. Or if, like, let's say you're doing like a blog, like you're guesting on a blog, or even like a podcast, or something along those lines, or you're sending it out to a client. You can just send them the link and they can click on the link. So that way, whenever you go in and you update it, if you send it
mhm,
to them on Monday and then 2 weeks from now you go in and you update it, well, when they click on it 3 weeks from now, they're gonna see whatever those updates are, versus you having sent the PDF and now they have stuff that's old information. Now they click on the link
yeah.
and it's up to date. So that's a great
Great
way.
idea.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it too. And then you can just easily update it. So yes, get it out your notes app, Lauren.
All right, I'm sufficiently shamed. I
Well,
hear
I'm
you.
sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Keep it in your notes app for yourself, but
Okay.
professionally, let's get it on one sheet.
So I
Yes.
shouldn't like screenshot it and send it to people? Probably not.
Yeah, no.
All right. Well, if people want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
So yeah, if people want to reach me, my website is themodcosc.com. And then my handle on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook is at the modcosc. Um, and yeah, those are usually my spots that I hang out. And then on LinkedIn, it's Angel Wilborn. And then my business page is the Modest Company LLC SC.
Okay. I will be sure to put all of that in the video description and in the podcast notes.
Uh,
And did you have a free gift for our listeners and our watchers?
Yes, and I'll make sure to get you that link as well. So my freebie is it's called Time to Pitch. And it gives you tips on how to pitch yourself to get onto other people's platforms. And it also gives you a checklist of what should be included on your one sheet.
Great. So I can take it out of my notes app and put it
Yeah.
into a real one sheet. Good,
Yes,
good.
yes.
Yes.
So yes, and I'll make sure that I get that link sent over to you as well.
All right. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Angel. It was wonderful. I feel like we could be talking for hours about PR, but I really appreciate you coming on today, and I had a great time.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lauren, and I had a great time as well.
And thank you all for watching and for listening, and tune in next time, and we'll see you later. Bye.